Welcome to the film podcast that nobody listens to. I am Brodey.
And I am David.
And David, it's been I don't know, since March.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Our last episode was the really big one with Lawrence, Maria, and Bryce, and us two, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was actually.
But, all have good
nobody listened to it.
Yeah, no one cares. They haven't been asking for an episode because no one listens to this.
Yeah. No one's been wondering where we went because nobody fucking listens anyway.
Well, we said it when we first, connected on the Discord. Yeah, it's been a while. What's going on? I was just busy. We're just two busy dudes. That's how it is. Life gets at you sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's always fun to come on back and just talk about films for a couple hours. Nothing like it.
Just to go back into it, we totally can,
Yep.
Yeah.
So, we have a topic for this episode. It sounds like we're having two decades face off with the title, but it's not like that. We're just discussing 2 decades of film that we think are the best. We each have 1 decade we'll talk about. But then we'll compare and contrast 7 films we picked that represent the decade that well and just kind of talk about them. And the decades we decided are the 70s and the 90s. And David, let's get your general thoughts on both of those before we dive into the project.
Oh, I'm of the opinion that the 70s was kind of like the golden age of film. I mean, really, that's the 50s, but the 70s is really when modern movies start coming out,
Yeah.
That's like the decade when movies start coming out and they feel very modern. Or if you told me that Network came out last year, I'd be like, oh yeah, I believe it, So
yeah,
that to me, that's the 70s, and that's what came about with it. The 90s, what would you say what's your biggest takeaway from the 90s?
So the 90s for me, how I can best describe it, it is they were just at the sort of the end of that filmmaking where they shoot it on film, newer technology at the time, but the films feel modern-ish. I know our modern now is very different than modern in the 90s, but the 90s, there was before cell phones, really before computers were used, so the stories didn't feel like technology was a big basis for their characters to use. It's just, for me, I really like the kind of less technology. Those films rely on dialogue. They have good filmmakers behind it. It's kind of like a mix of the 70s and the 80s. So you have the auteurish of the 70s with the filmmaking, but also kind of like their own cheesiness. The 90s have a cheese to it that isn't a bad thing. It adds a charm to their films, and it's just very welcoming, very entertaining. There's a lot of films in the 90s you could recommend to anybody, film lover or not, and they'll like it. Like Shawshank Redemption is the best example of the most entertaining film ever. Or like The Silence of the Lambs, which I'll talk about more. But that's my general thoughts of the 90s, if that made any sense.
Oh, I feel you. And you're right. It seems like the 90s was kind of like the boom for indie filmmaking.
Yes.
It probably started with Slacker first, maybe?
Could have. But the 90s started off strong with a film we'll talk about soon. But you are right about the indie boom because you have PTA and you have Tarantino. But was it you that told me was it you that told me that TV programs were giving away money to anybody to kind of make films? I don't know if that was you or somebody else.
I don't know if that was me, but that does, that makes sense. So
network TV was big back then because we didn't have all this shit, streaming shit now. And
we had 8 channels or whatever.
Yeah. Well, all those big TV programs had a bunch of money there just laying around. I don't know who told me this or if I read this up somewhere. So they were giving out money to festivals, people like PTA can get funding for boogie nights and shit. It's kind of cool how they were really expanding on more filmmakers to be able to make films.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
but I would agree that the 70s is the best decade of cinema. I mean, not to spoil my answers, but it is. I mean, the 70s has that auteur. I mean, we're going to say that a lot, at least I will, but that's the best way to describe it. The 70s have that just art. They really had passion, all those really classic films, and they're just still classics. You know, they really reign against time.
Yeah, and we had picked out a certain amount of movies for this episode, to like represent which movies represented each of those decades.
Yeah.
Specifically, but like I'm going to shout out a couple of them that didn't make the list that I put up.
Yeah, that's cool. Good idea.
I want to say that like Young Frankenstein, that comedy inspired so many other ones. Blazing Saddles.
Yes.
Apocalypse Now I didn't pick, but it's obviously incredible. All That Jazz.
Yes.
The Sting, which I know is one of your favorites.
Oh yeah. Auteur.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween, Black Christmas. I mean, there's so many genre movies that would inspire future ones. And so it's
those horror
worth
films.
Taking note.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good honorable mentions.
Yeah. Do you have any for the 90s?
I can name a few. Yes. I have my letterbox list because I'm a poser and have a bad memory. Hold on a second. Where is it? 90. Here we go. Honorable mentions. The one I took off was Heat. I love Heat. It's perfect, but Heat didn't make the cut. Schindler's List. I told David before that Schindler's List is a masterpiece, perfect film, but it's not something you turn on. You really have to want to watch that, and it's a perfect film, but it's very heavy, which is intended. Boogie Nights. Sleepy Hollow. I love Sleepy Hollow. It's a fucking.
Oh, I love that movie. That's my favorite Burton movie.
Toy Story did not make the cut, even though Toy Story is one of my favorite films ever. Lake Placid. I love that film, but come on, there's better films that I could pick than Lake Placid. I'm a sucker for that one. The Crow, Crimson Tide. I love those two. And Seven. Seven almost made it, but those are mine.
Those are all great.
Just too many. So, and it's funny because the 70s to me, it's the auteurship of cinema. The 80s tried to replicate that poorly. Like if you look at the best picture winners of the 80s, it's very kind of underwhelming and just mostly war films, Oliver Stone films. Like it's getting into that cheesiness, and the 80s horror just exploded in the most interesting way possible because they do have, I think, some of the best horror films in the 80s. So the 80s has a lot of good horror, whether it's good auteur or just garbage. Then the 90s is like a mix of those two to me. You got that cheesiness, but you still have that like filmmaking aspect, which is why I like it so much.
Yeah, the thing is that the 80s has so many fucking great movies. The difference is that it's just not consistent the way the 70s and the 90s were.
Very true. Very true. There's
a lot of bad ones in there, And the theory is that there was a lot of people that were really fucked up and were high on cocaine and shit like that during that decade.
Yeah.
So that totally makes sense. But yeah, I mean, the 80s has great movies. It's just, not as consistent.
It's so interesting, man, because like I think of like Spielberg films in the 80s and like Scorsese films in the 80s. Like, I mean, Spielberg had E.T., which hot take, think it's fine. I'm not a big fan of it. I agree with your hot take.
I think it's really whatever. I've never been a big fan of it.
Look, I understand why people love it. I can see it, but for me, I don't care. The main character is just don't believe him. I don't like the family. I met the mom, Dee Wallace, in real life, and she was a major bitch. So that doesn't help either.
She was really?
Yes, I got it. I met her my first year at Horror Hound, like in 2015, and she was nice at first. Just you can go up and talk to them, just say hi, hey, how's it going? And I saw she was an ET. I'm like, oh, how was it like working with Steven Spielberg? Then she got super bitchy and was like, well, I don't see how that's relevant here. And I said, oh, and I walked away. I'm like, what the fuck? How was that? I offend you in a way? I'm just like, is that an offensive question? Like, I don't understand.
That's crazy.
I don't get. So that doesn't help either. E.T. the alien itself is awesome. The practical effect is awesome. I really appreciate what they're going for. I still think it's well shot. The music's great, but the story is lacking for me. That's why I don't like it that much.
Yeah, it's also, I don't know about you, what you think, but I think that kid is really annoying.
Here's one thing. There's a big plot hole for me. I hate to say plot hole or just big glaring issue. So he discovers E.T. in that really funny, creepy scene when he sees him in the cornfield where he screams. It's a great scene. The next day, he randomly goes to the field where the alien UFO crashed. How do you know to go there specifically? Starts laying down the Reese's Pieces, not M&Ms. And then he sees the government people, and then he realizes it and runs away. So how the fuck did he find that field?
That's a good point, actually. I've never thought about that.
Like, when I watched it again, like, recently with Emily, I think it was last year, I kept thinking, wait, how the fuck did he know where to go? Because, like, it doesn't look like it's near his house, unless it is, and he just guessed right. But, like, how the fuck did he know to go there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's a really good one, actually. That's a good point.
I'm not trying to be a dick. Like, I understand people like it or love it, and that's great. I just have issues with it. That's what I mean with the 80s. And you have, like, that with Spielberg. I'd never seen Hook. I heard Hook is bad. Wait, is that 90s or 80s?
I think isn't that early 90s?
It might be. But, like, then you got Scorsese. What did he make? Oh, he made Raging Bull. Never mind. Raging Bull. What else did he make? I've never seen After Hours. I don't know if that's 80s.
It is, and that's a great movie.
All right, I'll watch that. I gotta get to that one. After Hours. And then Cape Fear. I want to watch Cape Fear. That looks cool.
Oh, you've never seen that one?
No, I haven't seen the original
Have you
either.
seen the original?
No.
Oh, okay.
I need to because I love Robert Mitchum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Both versions are great. I might argue that the original is actually better.
Okay, because it's Mitchum and Gregory Peck.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Dude, those two.
Just a fucking acting masterclass in that one.
I love those two. I love Mitchum. He's great in everything. And Gregory Peck, he is in a really underrated Western from 1958 called The Bravados. Super dark, super intense, great twist, great acting. Gregory Peck plays like this stoic, badass cowboy. It's awesome. Super awesome. It really impressed me.
I'll add that to the watch list.
Hell yeah. That's when I watched it for my 58 project. It was so... I think it was my fourth favorite of that project. Third or fourth. It's very good.
Sweet.
But I gotta watch Cape Fear too, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they're very. I feel like they're pretty different, you know. But yeah, I think you dig them. What was I gonna say? I'd say though that the '90s was kind of the start of not just indie filmmaking, but like I feel like genre pieces were getting reinvented and like what you would, you wouldn't normally see some certain, like, I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but like Silence of the Lambs did so much. I can't even imagine now a horror movie sweeping the Oscars the way that one did.
Wait, David, it's actually a thriller. It's not a horror movie. Shut the fuck up. It is a horror movie. You're right. You're completely right, by the way. It's a horror movie. Yeah. It swept the Oscars because it's a horror movie. It's about a cannibalistic doctor helping to solve the serial killings from a fucked up individual.
Yeah, and you can't tell me that you see that scene that, when they're in the basement and be like, yeah, that's definitely not a horror scene. Like, what are you talking about?
Stupid. But dude, don't worry, we'll get to that one. And so do you want to start? Like, what would you rather do? Because I was thinking we could start with one decade. We would list our films, talk about each film, and then go to the next one.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Do you want to go first? Or want me to go first?
Sure. If you want, I'll go first.
Okay. So, before you go, I think we should say the first film we talk about is our favorite of that decade. That way we can say, this is what I think is the best one, talk about that for a while, then just move on. Is that cool with you?
Yeah. Perfect.
All right,
well, my favorite of the 70s is Jaws.
Yes! Already the best. Yeah.
That is, to me, one of the 5 best movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
It still holds up. I genuinely think... I mean, it obviously started the blockbuster. We all know that. But I genuinely think it's one of those movies that if you put it on right now, I can start it and, like, if I just randomly flip through channels and it's whatever scene it's on, I'm in the rest of the way. And
Mhm.
there are very few movies that can do that. And Jaws just sort of reinvented everything. I feel like there's a pre-Jaws and post-Jaws era to movies. Like,
Yeah.
I really think it reinvented a lot of shit, you know? That's also your favorite from the 70s, I assume?
Yes, and my favorite film ever. So you are
Yeah.
spot on in everything you said. It's the most rewatchable film. It's the most entertaining film. It's just a fucking banger from start to finish. And I agree with how it reinvented cinema. It really did.
Yeah, and I mean, it's insane because looking into like the background of how everything went wrong, the fact that they wanted to show the shark a lot, which is actually a bad idea
Yeah.
in retrospect, but like it's just so good. And obviously like arguably the greatest theme in film history,
Yes.
arguably,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
Say that Superman and maybe like Star Wars are probably like the top 3 that I could think of, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean that's the first one that comes up for me.
Well, Spielberg, I feel like his mindset was he was making a monster movie. But then once he
Yeah,
realized the shark wouldn't work, he kind of had to like think, all right, this this is not going the way I wanted. We have to think and he thought of not showing the shark, using suspense. He kind of, I don't want to say reinvented his original thought, but changed it into a way that made it better, as you said. And of course, he said the film would not work without John Williams' score. He said that straight up. He said it wouldn't work nearly as well without the score, and he's right. The score is the other half of the film. It's one. It makes, to me, there's the film and then there's the score. Those two are half. That's how big the score is on that film. It's huge.
yeah. Have you ever seen the scenes? I feel like
Yes.
there are some on YouTube's without the music.
Yes, with Richard Dreyfuss even like saying, "Yeah, isn't that stupid?" It's so interesting how
Yeah,
that one scene where Hooper's tying on the knots and it's very intense with the way the camera's moving with Robert Shaw. Come on, hurry! It's coming, hurry right now! Like he's really intense and like the with the music, and then without the
yeah,
music, it's just flat. It's flat as a board. It's amazing, and then the music comes on and it's swelling with the boat and his movements and it's rhythm with it's just perfect. It's perfect for the scene, and it really then it gets you going. It's like, oh shit, you come on, get it like you're intense as well. It's awesome,
yeah. Totally. I mean, it kind of proves just how important music is to filmmaking. You know.
dude. It really is, and I'm a preacher for music in movies. Now there have been movies without music. I'll name one right now just for a shout out. Failsafe, 1964. Doesn't have music, but it's super intense. It's Sidney Lumet. It's very good.
I haven't seen that one.
It's very good. No music at all. It's all dialogue. It's fucking
Like
perfect.
in the entire movie, there's no music
No
at all.
music. Well, there's like, of
That's
course, sound
crazy.
designs and stuff,
Yeah, 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 but
but
no
there's
actual
no
music.
actual score. Yep.
Wow, that's crazy.
I guess there was a score, and then Lumet realized it would be better without it, which is very bold to to do that, because for me, I would think the opposite. So that's commendable. But there's a little one film I can think of without music um, that actually works. But Jaws is the best score, I think, ever.
Yeah, and I think that the 70s, when I really think about it now, has maybe the best scores. Like in terms of just like, okay, in
Yeah,
75 you
yeah,
have that. 72 you have The Godfather, which has one of the most iconic scores of all time.
yes.
You know, you have in 77 you have Star Wars and Close Encounters. You know,
I'm a hater of Star Wars, but I will agree the music is just, again, John Williams. God, it helps. It's awesome. Sorcerer's score, all that jazz.
yes,
Halloween.
Halloween, yeah, absolutely.
The Exorcist. I mean, the theme's cool. That has good music.
Yeah.
Barry Lyndon. Barry
Oh, I thought we
Lyndon.
were talking about good movies.
Oh, get out of here. Stop it. You better be kidding.
No, that's like my second favorite Kubrick.
I was going to say, you fucker. That was a good one. Barry Lyndon, which is a 70s film, which is 75, along with Jaws and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
It's a part of the arguably the greatest like slate of Best
Yeah.
Picture nominees ever.
That year definitely, I was just like, Holy shit, man, that's just crazy. And fun little fact: One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is in a group of 3 films where they won Best Picture, Best Director, Actor, Actress, and Screenplay. Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest won that, all 5 of those. Another film in 1934 called It Happened at Night. Haven't seen that. The other film that did that was The Silence of the Fucking Lambs.
Of course.
And we'll get to that in a second, but I just want to give that little fun fact. I don't know what it's called, but that's kind of cool. Only 3 films have won just those 5 Oscars. The Big 5, they call it.
Yeah, I mean, talk about rarefied air. But like, that's insane. What about for you? So like, we were talking about, each decade having their own incredible films. Like, is there one for you in the 90s that's your favorite? Like,
so my favorite that I think represents the 90s perfectly, and it's a perfect film, and it just recently changed my mind on this because I had a different film in mind before, but my new pick is The Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
Now, I might be still like on the hype train because I just watched it like 2 times in a row, but like...
Was it your first time watching it?
No. I've seen this before.
Okay.
And I don't know, I just... Like, I liked it before. I don't know if I just didn't appreciate... I just never really... I guess it didn't grow on me. And after my one viewing last week, I was like, I want to watch that. I watched it on my Criterion copy, which is awesome. And it really grew on me. I'm like, this is a perfect film. I mean, just in terms of writing, acting, directing, music, everything. It's just perfect. It's like rare. You get something like that ever. And it's just really, really just blew me away. So I'm like, that's the best film. I mean, that's one of the best films I've ever seen. I mean, in terms of just, I think it's perfect.
Yeah, there's this really weird amount of people that think that they should have recast Jodie Foster.
Yeah, I don't get the criticism. I've seen that too since I've been talking about it. And I'm like, what
insane,
are they seeing?
Right?
What are they? Yeah, I mean, Jodie Foster, I mean, Hopkins is obviously the best part of the film, but Jodie Foster is right there too.
I mean, the best scenes in the movie are their back and forth.
Yes.
With that Kubrick zoom in on their faces, just going back and forth between their conversations. Those are the best scenes of the film, the movie. You know?
Yes, and it's all dialogue and acting.
It's all dialogue. It's all in the eyes. And
yes.
Like, I don't know if I've ever told you, but Silence of the Lambs is maybe my comfort movie.
Nothing wrong with that.
And it's specifically those scenes, though. There's something sort of relaxing yet, terrifying about those scenes between them. Specifically Hannibal.
I find them hypnotic because of Lecter.
Yeah, that's what it is. They're hypnotic. You almost fall into a trance watching them.
Because, and you said it right. It's the close-ups. Little fun fact. Paul Thomas Anderson once said, "There is no one that does close-ups like Jonathan Demme in The Silence of the Lambs." Probably the best close-ups ever in film history. I can't describe how it's 90% close-ups, right? But the way they're shot, it just really, like you said, it entrances you in this world. You feel like you're with them and you can't escape. That's the point of them. It's intense. It's really hypnotic. That's the best way to describe it, man. It's crazy.
Totally. You feel like you're falling into a trance while you're watching those scenes.
In the dialogue, like I can't describe how good the script is. The script, I mean, obviously it's based off the novel, but Ted Talley, who adapted the script, really did a good job with just nonstop dialogue that was just engaging, that was interesting, that was just fucking awesome to listen to. You're right. Their scenes together are the best parts. The best parts. There's only 4 scenes. He's only in the film for 16 minutes, bro. 16 minutes.
And it's the most impactful 16 minutes that anybody has ever had in a movie.
Well, for one, it feels longer. I still can't believe that because I watched it twice. Like, I watched it today and yesterday with a buddy. And it feels like he's in it for half the film, but he's only in it for 16 minutes. And Hopkins famously said, there's a lie that's on IMDb trivia that he researched serial killers. I watched the interview. He said he didn't research that shit. He said he just based his performance off of like Audrey Hepburn and 2 other people and just played it creepy. He didn't blink in his scenes, and he's very fucking good. His performance is one of the best performances I think ever.
His intro is so underrated to me.
Yes.
The way that she walks in and he's just standing there waiting.
Yes.
Like he's just standing there just waiting, and again he's also like just not blinking. It's like you said. It's so creepy. It's so creepy. Yeah.
That first act is probably my favorite first act in a film. It's just, it gets you right into it. I love how she's introduced with the jogging. Howard Shore's beautiful score, by the way. He's the guy who did Lord of the Rings, which I like the score for Lord of the Rings.
Howard Shore is one of the all-time best composers.
Yeah, he is. And that score for Silence of the Lambs is very good.
It's also interesting that they started with Silence of the Lambs and not Red Dragon.
Yeah, I haven't seen Red Dragon. I might watch it today. I plan, is the keyword, watching Hannibal, the 2001 movie, Ridley Scott's movie, and maybe Red Dragon. The problem is I don't like Edward Norton and I don't like Brett Ratner, and I know they're like the director and actor.
You should watch Manhunter.
I have seen Manhunter.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's Red Dragon is sort of like a remake, basically, but with,
Hopkins.
90% less direction.
Yeah, because it's Brett Ratner. And here's the thing. It's funny you bring up Manhunter because I feel like this film also gets unfairly thrown into the Michael Mann discourse stands because they're like, but it's no Manhunter. Look, I like Manhunter. I think it's awesome. I've seen it once. I thought it was very neon soaked. It's fucking awesome. Michael Mann, I love his shit. I love his style. His style is awesome. I like Tom Noonan in that film. He's super creepy. Great villain. The main actor, it's not the film's fault, but he's in CSI. I used to watch CSI religiously.
Oh, yeah. His name's William Peterson.
Yeah. So I just thought of that show the whole time whenever he was on screen, which isn't the film's fault, but it took me out a little bit. And I don't know. I just prefer Silence of the Lambs. I mean, they're both different films. One's a neon-drenched, soaked Michael Mann, noir, and the other one is a 90s horror, just whatever. They're very different.
They're both great, but I've heard people who think that Manhunter is better and that Brian Cox is better, and I'm like, okay, now you're just being a fucking contrarian. What are you talking about?
Listen, Brian Cox is very good. When I watched it,
he's great.
This is interesting.
Great.
Yeah.
He makes really interesting choices. He's really good in it. It's like, come on, stop it.
It's not that he's not as good as Hopkins. I just think Hopkins has a presence.
Yeah.
That cannot be touched. His presence is even the scenes he's not in, dude. When they talk about him, you feel. I love the sound design. I just watched that movie earlier, and the sound design for Silence of the Lambs. There's like a ghostly wind in the background during the interactions, and it makes it sound like an empty hall, like she's alone with him. It's fucking awesome. I can't describe how perfect that movie is. Seriously.
No, that's one of those where, like you said, won every major category, swept the Oscars.
So cool.
And after you watch it, you're like, yeah, it deserved it. I get it.
So cool. They get it right every now and then. Like Parasite, this.
Every once in a while, they get it right.
Yeah. Like, people would say what's that Del Toro film? Shape of Water. No, Shape of Water.
Shape of Water.
Like, which I'm not a fan of it. I think it's fine, but it is kind of unique that they picked that movie for Best Picture.
A fish fucking movie?
Yeah. I didn't want to say it. He beat me to it. Yeah. So they get it right every now and then. Like, what's your favorite Best Picture winner? Kind of off topic.
Oh, of all time? That's tough. That might be No Country for Old Men.
Okay.
I know you prefer There Will Be Blood.
We need to do an episode where we actually have a face-off. You would be that movie, I'd be There Will Be Blood, because I don't like No Country for Old Men. I think that'd be a very fun discussion.
Oh, you don't like it at all?
Well, okay. It's good. It's well made. I just think it's fine.
What's your rating for it? Just out of curiosity.
A generous 4 out of 5.
Generous?
Generous 4 out of 5.
See, I think they're both 5 out of 5s. I just think No Country's a little more rewatchable than There Will Be Blood. That's really the only reason I have it higher.
No. I'm not trying to sound like, this is better than this because that's, being a douchebag. Just, for me, the story of No Country for Old Men, I just think it's very generic for the Coens. I mean, they really elevated what the performance is. I love each actor, especially Javier Bardem is perfect. He's super scary. I love that character a lot. It's just the story, and then you kind of get preachy with at the end. And I was just like, I don't know. I mean, I think it's good. It's just I like the other Coen's films a little better. I like when they're quirky weirdos.
Yeah, I feel like Wes Anderson definitely took the quirkiness from them, right? Like,
Oh,
must
no
have been
doubt.
heavily inspired by the quirkiness.
No doubt.
I don't know if you like Wes. I love Wes Anderson, but he definitely took inspiration from them.
Dude, I've watched 3 Wes Anderson films. I've only seen The Grand Budapest Hotel, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Isle of Dogs. Now, out of those 3, Isle of Dogs is my favorite. I love stop motion. Love that. That movie was great. I liked his style with it. Fantastic Mr. Fox, I did not like the story at all, but it was still charming. And The Grand Budapest Hotel was interesting. That's the only live action film I've seen from him. And I've loved the sets. I love his style. It's so weird and just quirky. I mean, it sounded like a film, bro. The problem was, like, at one point, I thought it was like a kids movie because it was very, like, G-rated. Out of nowhere, Willem Dafoe comes in and cuts someone's head off and throws it out of this door. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I thought this was a kids movie. And then it goes back.
And then didn't he chop Jeff Goldblum's hands or something?
Yeah, and then then that happens. I'm like, wait, so this is not a kids movie. So we're watching like it feels like a Pee Wee Herman episode that's meant for adults, but it looks like a kids show. It's hard to describe. Like, what? Like, who? I don't know. It's just it was very tonally for me strange, and I hate this sound like I'm just nitpicking, but when a tone is not consistent, it really throws me off. So I was like, wait, I thought this was like a funny little fairy tale, but there's like murder. Like, what the fuck? And like cussing. It was It was just weird. I just felt like I don't know. It felt like watching The Cat in the Hat.
Oh God.
Okay.
The Cat in the Hat.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? I mean, you know, it's funny though. The '90s also has some of the best sequels of all time. You know.
And thank you for going back to that conversation. Good segue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on, like T2, like, I mean, you're not a fan, right?
Dude, you're just, yes, I'm not a fan. No, it's okay. These discussions are interesting.
Wow.
Well, okay, again, it's one of those, I think it's well made. I'm not a Cameron guy. I'm going to say this for the 4th time. I don't like the story. Just like, the story to me is important, and I don't know, I like the action. That fucking, what the hell, semi-truck chase scene in that little alleyway thing is super intense, super awesome.
Yeah.
So like, in the CGI is cool. I mean, I wouldn't give it a bad rating. I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Like, it's not. I'm just a hater, I guess. Then you got Tarantino shit, and like, people always give me shit for leaving Pulp Fiction off of my '90s list. And it's like, look, Pulp Fiction is not my thing. I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't like it. It's not my thing. I don't like Tarantino.
Hey, you're a PTA guy. That's fine. Although your opinion on Hard 8 being a 5 out of 5, that's questionable.
I dropped it down to a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
Once I
you
saw,
know what your other rating you should drop though?
Don't even say it.
Is Toy Story 2.
Okay, that's one of the best sequels of the '90s. Actually, thank you for bringing that up.
No, come on.
That is one of the best sequels of the '90s. Hell yeah.
That's the worst Toy Story movie, though.
No, that's 3.
No, stop it. Toy Story 3 is the best one. What are you talking about?
No, it's not. I don't. It's still good. All right, so sequels. We got T2, then we have Toy Story 2. Funny, another T2. What the fuck? What else is there? Sequels.
Well, Scream also comes out the same decade, and I've always thought that Scream 2, Scream 2 is a really good sequel.
Well, Scream, while I have, like, I don't like Scream fans are annoying. Not, like, people I know, but, like, there are a lot of Scream fans. They're just very, like, or I guess we should say stans is the correct term. But, like, I can't deny Scream is very influential. The script is awesome. It's directed awesome. I love it. I think it's definitely a staple of the 90s for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean the '90s. It's so interesting because the '90s has a renaissance of horror also
Yeah,
with that starts with Scream, but because then Scream comes along, that gives you like the self-aware type of horror
meta.
movie, and then you start getting other kind of teen horror slasher type deals where you have like I Know What You Did Last Summer and shit like that
Yeah.
that immediately follows it. It's just interesting when you get a new subgenre created by one film,
Well, not only that, you're right. But one of my films I picked for my list, I'll just name it here since it's kind of in the subject. But one of the 7 films I picked was The Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
Because, like you just said, making a new genre. And I know there were other found footage films before this film, but this film, like Halloween, made it popular. Because The Blair Witch Project, in my opinion, is probably the creepiest film I've ever seen. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's so creepy, and I mean, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, you should go see it.
Yes.
You'd never see anything.
Yeah.
Like, you genuinely don't. It's all, your imagination playing tricks on you, sort of.
It's so
I mean,
awesome.
yeah, even the final scene is like terrifying, and you see nothing.
No.
You see nothing.
They took what
And
was
it's
best about
still
Jaws.
scary. Yeah.
And they didn't show anything. And which that would have upset a lot of people, but also what made that what made that film special was its marketing. The marketing was genius, making it seem like this was real. Putting up like on the internet, this is like all these cool little behind the scenes things, and people thought it was real. That definitely helped it.
They would put like, we're looking for these actors who are in the movie because they're lost, they're gone.
Wait, David, I just thought of something. I don't think that film has a score.
Oh, it doesn't. You're right.
That is a horror film with no score that we think is perfect. Now, just that's a very interesting thing to think about, because we both talk about we love the scores, especially horror films have some of the best scores ever, that genre. And that one has none. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, insane. I haven't even noticed it until you pointed it out right now.
Well, the sound design I guess would be its own soundtrack, but there's no music. That is incredible. Wow, that made me really love that film even more.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, there are very few films that can pull off that kind of atmosphere without any music, but that's one of them. And I mean, guess what? Without that, we wouldn't have, Paranormal Activity and the 12 sequels and, all that other shit.
And the fucking boom of that subgenre.
Yeah, what is it? Wreck and all those
Wreck
other
is
ones.
good. I like Wreck.
It's a movie.
Do you have any horror films of the 70s you'd like to talk about, so we can kind of segue back to maybe one of your films you picked?
Okay, well, I will say one of the movies I picked was The Exorcist.
Okay.
And I picked it specifically because to this day, I mean, that is maybe the most influential horror movie of all time. It has one of the best scores, one of the best themes ever, one of the best performances, and he broke a little girl's back. Spoiler alert! I don't know if you knew that.
No.
They broke her. If you remember the scene with when she's being like tossed around, and she's all possessed on the bed.
Yeah.
They I guess they tied her up to some kind of a pole, and the pole is being moved around under her, and they ended up breaking like a vertebrae in her back.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
That caused her permanent damage. Like even today, she says she has back problems because of that.
Wow, I didn't know.
And I mean, all the stories behind that. I mean, all the shit that went wrong. I know there was a few people that died.
Damien,
some random shit.
What's his name died? The Pastor Miller.
Yeah, he died too.
That's a good pick. I'm not a big fan of it. I'd give it a 7 because I'm, again, going to be nitpicky. But I will say, I love the fact that a studio got a budget. They got a good fucking filmmaker with Friedkin, one of the best. They took it seriously. It felt like they really tried to make a good horror movie on a bigger scale.
Yeah. And And not only that, people had never seen anything like that. Like all the shit that she does in that when she's possessed is pretty fucking awful.
Yeah,
Including the scene where she's, stabbing her crotch with a cross.
and
Like
saying some profanities that are kind of funny.
they're fucking hilarious now. I can imagine though in the early 70s when, there's just nothing else going on. I mean, there's shit going on in the world, but movie-wise, you had never seen anything like that. There were people apparently that would pass out and were throwing up in the aisles. And I can imagine how traumatizing that would be.
My dad saw it in theaters, and he said it was like people were shitting their pants.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't.
He saw
Can you
all the good
imagine
film
how
in the
awful it would've
70s.
been?
He saw all
Yeah.
the good
Imagine.
films in the 70s.
Did you see Jaws in theaters too?
He did.
Oh, wow.
He said when the shark blew up, people fucking cheered. He said when they saw Ben Gardner's head, people ran out of the theaters. He said it was insane.
That's great. I feel like people would get annoyed now if people did that though.
Well, like the sort of a subtopic, but like people get upset these days about it because it's mostly Marvel films. How Marvel films are just made to enter, like they're just like Scorsese said, they're amusement park rides. So people go in, they cheer when they see Andrew Garfield, and then when the film comes out on DVD and you watch that again, there's like 6 seconds of a pause after his entrance, intent for cheering in theaters. It's awkward as hell.
Yeah.
That's what people are
And I
talking
know
about.
those are your favorite types of movies.
Oh, I can't wait to talk more about them. Luckily, they're not in the 70s or the 90s. But what's your rating of The Exorcist? I don't think we ever talked about this one.
So I have it as a 9 because I do have issues with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's such an influential movie.
Yeah, it is.
And you know what it really is that like I think the first half is very interesting, but nothing really happens until like an hour into the movie.
Yeah, it's kind of slow.
It's a very slow, and I mean, a movie can be slow and still be really good, but it's a really slow burn.
It's a very slow
And
burn.
it's still, yeah, I mean, it's still a great movie. And I will say, Friedkin in that same decade follows that up with one of your favorite movies. That's
Sorcerer, yep.
Sorcerer, yeah.
Which he had the power of winning Best Director for French Connection and being successful off The Exorcist. He got whatever he wanted, and he made that fucking insane. That was like the last of the auteurish. No, that wasn't the
Yeah.
last. 'Cause that was 77. The last was like All That Jazz or Apocalypse Now.
I think aren't they all in 79? Pretty much.
No, Sorcerer 77 with Star Wars.
Okay.
Which I just thought of this idea. Like The Shining's 1980, but The Shining
Yeah.
feels like a 70s horror film.
Totally. And it kicks off the 80s run of incredible horror movies.
Yeah.
And that's the decade of, to me, the best horror probably is the 80s.
Oh, yeah, it is. They've had, I mean, the Thing. Like, that's all I have to say.
I mean, The Thing, I would argue is the best horror movie ever.
I would agree with you that it is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a Mount Rushmore for me of horror movies, and it's Silence of the Lambs, it's The Shining, and then it's maybe Psycho.
Ooh, okay, that might be a, man, I can't argue with that one. So you have The Shining, Silence of the Lambs, The Thing, and then what was the last one?
Well, there's a few that I'm thinking about, but Psycho is probably the one that comes to mind immediately.
Okay. I would agree with that 3, but I'd put Frankenstein at the end of that because I just have to give credit to that fucking awesome movie. I know it's not nearly as good as the other ones, but I love it.
Heavily influential though, so.
Yeah, but that's a good lineup, dude. Silence of the Lambs, The Shining, and The Thing. Wow. That's a good lineup.
Yeah.
No, definitely the 70s has good horror, though. Like, have you ever seen, what the fuck is it called? Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
Oh, the remake? Oh,
Yes.
it's so good.
Yes, the 70s remake is awesome.
The
Awesome.
Donald Sutherland one.
Yeah, and Spock. Spock's in it, too.
Yeah. Yeah, Leonard Nimoy. Yeah.
It's a good film.
Great film. I don't know if you've seen the original. The original's actually
have.
really good too.
I have. It's
I
good.
love the original.
The original's good. I mean, I would say the 70s is a little better, but the 50s one, I love his cameo, by the way, in the 70s one. Great fuck. One of the best cameos I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, the cameo is really dope.
So awesome.
The '50s one, I love the '50s one specifically because I love that '50s genre of like
Yes,
sci-fi movies that were really low budget. You know,
they're so charming. Fun
they're
fact.
yeah, they're so charming. They're so good.
Fun fact. Halloween 3, because I have to bring that up in every podcast
Mhm.
episode. The director loved that film, the '50s version, named the town in Halloween 3 Santa Maria off the town in that film, and kind of did a homage to the ending of Halloween 3 with the ending of the '50s film where the guy looks in the camera and screams.
Yeah,
So that's a
actually, I knew that one. Believe it or not.
hell yeah. That's a good movie though. I like. I'm with you. The '50s. The '50s is an underrated genre, underrated decade in my opinion, because 1958, when I did that project, has a lot of bangers alone
Well,
in
for
just one
me,
year.
the '50s would be my third favorite decade of movies. For
That's
me, I don't know about you.
that's awesome. What's your favorite film of the '50s?
I mean, it might be Some Like It Hot because I'm a big Billy Wilder guy.
I have not seen that, and I need to see that because I like Billy Wilder. He's that dude.
I think you'd see it, and like for me, I can honestly say that my perspective on Marilyn Monroe changed because she had always been like, like the classic hot girl sorta
Hmm.
that was idolized. But I saw that and I walked away like, no, like it's not like she's a fucking Kim Kardashian who became famous for their looks. It's She was actually like really talented. If you watch that movie, you're like, holy shit, she was really talented.
Yeah, I need to see that because
Yeah.
she's in a good film noir called The Asphalt Jungle. John, I think Houston Hudson. I always fuck his name up. Who did the Maltese Falcon? Good film noir. Uh, in the cool name Asphalt Jungle.
I'll add it to the watch list.
It's got her and Sterling Hayden. He's awesome.
Oh, nice. Sterling Hayden's a great actor.
Yeah, he's in a bunch of good Kubrick films too. Kubrick.
Yeah.
The '50s is good.
What about for you? For the night, I feel like there was like also like a sci-fi boom in the '90s. You have like a favorite sci-fi from that decade?
Let me look at my list. Let me look at my list. Sci-fi. I mean, I know you probably want me to say The Matrix, so I'll just shout that out. It's not on my list, but The Matrix is probably the most influential sci-fi film ever made. So I'll give that a shout out. Well, actually, here's one on my list. We can talk about this. Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it's definitely sci-fi.
Yeah, Jurassic Park is Spielberg. It's him on his game as usual. He made that and Schindler's List at the same time, or during the same
and
time.
also, and also arguably, one of the greatest scores ever.
Yeah, John Williams again, God. But Jurassic Park is just like, it's still to this day very effective. The effects look amazing. That T-Rex scene is just like, dude, fucking insane filmmaking.
The fact that there have been so many Jurassic Park sequels and they still can't get the dinosaurs to look as the original. is
Yeah,
insane.
so right,
Like
dude.
they still look the most real in the original. It's not even close.
The original's just there shouldn't be sequels. There shouldn't have
Yeah.
been any sequels. There's no point. The story was told. And I haven't seen the new one. I'm not going to see the new one ever because I would rather go to work than watch the new one. But like the story of the original is just so simple but so effective. The characters are all awesome. The actors are all awesome. The score is awesome. It's just, again, like Silence of the Lambs, it's fucking awesome. Everything works well together.
Totally. And I will say you don't you don't have to watch the sequel.
The last
I
one.
mean, I walked out of the theater from the sequel and I said that is the worst movie I've seen since the last Jurassic Park sequel.
It's worse than Fallen Kingdom.
I think Fallen Kingdom is worse, but it's really bad. It's like right there with it.
You know how sad it is that the last film in a really high, like in a really in a trilogy that made a lot of money, like they made billions of dollars, but they're forgetful. They already forgot about that one that just came out. Like it has no cultural impact.
Yeah.
That's sad.
I mean, and you know what's funny is that like the direction isn't really bad in it either. It's J.A. Bayona who directed it. Who I don't know if you know. Like I'm
The
not a Lord of the
Orphanage.
Rings guy, and I know you aren't either. but he's currently directing all the episodes for the Rings of Power.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen it. I've seen the first 2 episodes. It's actually pretty good. And I
Really?
think his direction's actually really good in it too.
But David, aren't you afraid of there's black elves, David? That's not not normal. Dude,
Oh god, they're fucking Lord of the Rings fans annoy the fuck out of me. I will say that.
I saw the reviews like, hey, people say it looks good, but I kept seeing people like, yeah, but they're just the woke agenda. I'm like, oh my god, here we go.
I know it's always something. Like, the lead character is a woman. I'm like, okay.
Dude, let me bring this up real quick. I was with a buddy last night and we watched Silence of the Lambs. I said his name was Pat. I'm like, Pat, this is how you write a female character. She is not an overpowered, perfect person. All the male characters aren't stupid. She is just a good character. She has goals. She goes through weaknesses, and she's a well-written, well-acted character of Clarice Starling. You know what I'm saying?
One of the best characters of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her character is not just I'm a woman first. She is a character.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about the writing. People don't realize that. It's the writing that shows. I don't want to get into topics of like, weak female character because that's not what we're talking about here, and that we would just get hated because people. It's a touchy subject. But in this day and age, there are not a lot of good female characters because they're written in such a way that it's just pandering to everybody, and they just think they're trying to be smart. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
I will say, even some of my favorite filmmakers don't write female characters that good.
Like what?
Like Christopher Nolan. And
I mean,
he's my favorite director, and even I can admit, his characters aren't bad though. Like he still has a few there.
No.
Same thing with Fincher. They're kind of like,
yeah,
but it's not, again, I don't think they do it on purpose. I think they just, they haven't figured out that part of the formula yet.
I don't think Nolan's bad. I mean, I can see like the complaint, like they're always dead or like they got problems, but like, I mean, I would say the weakest female character he's written, I don't know if he wrote it, but like Talia al Ghul in The Dark Knight Rises is very bad, and I think it's the writing.
I would say for me it's maybe Anne Hathaway in Interstellar.
Oh, she's also bad in The Dark Knight Rises too. I would say she's the weakest actually.
Yeah, I think what it is for me is I just don't think I don't like her as an actress. Maybe that's what it is.
That could be. I mean, that could be it. But I don't think Nolan's bad at writing female characters. Like, I can't think of one who, like, old films have, that's just how it was back then. But especially older films, the female characters. But like, Silence of the Lambs is a good example of writing a female character that's a good fucking character, a good protagonist. It's that simple.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I feel like the 90s has so many really. It has one of my favorite filmmakers who did oh man, how many movies did he do in that decade? It's Robert Zemeckis.
Oh yeah.
He did Contact that decade. That's one of my favorite movies.
I'm gonna add to my watch
list
list
right
now.
Talked about.
Contact.
Huh?
Contact. I'm adding my watch list right now. I've never seen it.
You should.
Contact. What else? He also made Back to the Future. Was that the 80s?
Yeah, but I mean, in general, that is when he was the most active. Was the 90s? He did that. He did Castaway. He did a lot of great movies.
Jodie Foster is in Contact. That's cool.
Yeah, it's her and Matthew McConaughey.
All right. What else did he make that decade?
What else did he make? Let me see. Might have to look this up. Actually, I wasn't prepared.
Who's my favorite director of the 90s? That's a good question.
Let's see. Oh, that's right. He did Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, he did Forrest Gump. He did Contact. Not 90s, but he did Who's Afraid of Roger Rabbit? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Excuse me.
Yeah, that was 89, which I mean, you could argue is 90s.
I mean, he's just a really interesting filmmaker. He's made a lot of my favorite movies.
What do you think how he's doing right now?
He's not doing great right now.
I want to see that fucking Steve Carell doll movie he made a few years ago because
Oh, Welcome to Marwin.
it
Yeah,
looked interesting, but I heard it's not like that at all, and it sucked.
yeah, I did see it. It wasn't good.
And he made the new Pinocchio, not the
Oh
Del
boy.
Toro one. So yeah, he's not doing very well.
He also just like it's because he was like pretty experimental with the way he does shit, you know.
Well, he liked that
And
fucking stupid CGI.
yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. That he did the Polar Express,
Oh,
and after that he started using that, and he did like Beowulf,
a
and those were
bunch of
just awful.
shit. They look creepy.
Yeah.
That's and like the Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey.
Oh god, that's bad too.
Listen, I'm not against Christmas movies, but when you dive into Christmas movie realms, you're diving into a different type of your career.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I'm not against them, but like your films are only relevant during 1 month of the year,
Yep. I'd say the same thing about Christmas music.
which I like. However, I'm with you. It's only you can only listen to it like you don't put up poppin' Mariah Carey's famous song in June.
Yeah, you're not gonna do that in August, you know?
Like December 1st till after Christmas, it's fine, and then yeah, it kind of ages you. But what else is there? What would you say? Okay, what else is on your list?
Well, I also have Chinatown.
Oh, Chinatown, which I see why you put that on there.
I know you're not big on Chinatown. Love Chinatown. I think it has one of the most fucked up endings I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'd argue. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say because I have that. I also have One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I just think during this decade and in the early '80s, actually even to the late '80s, going to Batman, Jack Nicholson went on a run
Oh,
of
dude, hella career,
just like he's the greatest actor of all time for like a good 20-year stretch. Like,
hell of a career,
and it wasn't even close. Yeah.
hell of a career. I mean, would you agree that Cuckoo's Nest won over Jaws is justified for Best Picture?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I mean, obviously, I would pick Jaws over it. I think Jaws is a better film, but I think Cuckoo's Nest is maybe my second favorite film of that year. Like, I don't think it
Okay.
was a bad choice. You know.
Yeah. No, you're completely fair, man. It's a very good film. Cuckoo's Nest is just like another auteur, artsy, well-made film. Good music,
Yeah.
good story, good characters.
Another just a bunch of people winning Oscars for that one. Was
Good
it, like
villain.
Nurse Ratched, right?
She
Yeah.
was great. I mean,
Yeah.
the director, I like Amadeus a lot. Have you seen Amadeus before?
Yeah. Yeah. Amadeus is really good.
Fucking probably the best picture win of the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
Amadeus is, but like, yeah, Milos Forman, I may say it wrong. He's awesome. Yeah, it's a good movie.
great.
I'm biased to Jaws, but still, it's cool that won Best Picture.
But again, that year you really couldn't have gone wrong with any pick,
No, not at all.
except if you had picked Barry Lyndon because that movie
Or-
blows.
Or
like the rest of
Nashville.
them.
I watched
Or
Nashville.
Nashville.
It was kind of
Yeah.
it was good. It wasn't bad.
It's solid,
Not at
but
all.
even still, it's like I'd rather Nashville win that year than Green Book in 2018.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean?
Fucking Green Book, or let's talk about a bad '90s film, Shakespeare in Love.
Oh, fucking hate that movie.
Awful. One of the worst films ever made. And that won Best Picture over fucking Saving Private Ryan. What a joke.
What a joke! And then I've heard that the reason that it won was that was Harvey Weinstein at his peak, flexing his powers, trying to convince everybody to pick it.
He basically
Yeah.
just told everyone to vote for my shit. Like, he just was
Yeah.
nonstop campaigning. And it worked. And it's like, wow. It's fucking pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, Saving Private Ryan would have won.
Yeah. Should have
It
won.
would have and it should have. Yeah.
It's good he won director at least, because he deserved it.
Yeah.
That's another. Like, I don't want to get into war movies unless you do, but like both decades, you have Apocalypse Now for one, for your decade, and then the 90s, you have Saving Private Ryan.
You also have Deer Hunter in the
Yes.
70s, too.
That's a very good movie. Fun fact, Roy Scheider was supposed to play the role that De Niro got. Roy Scheider couldn't do it because of his contractual obligations to Jaws 2.
Yeah, I knew that one too, actually, and that is.
And god
I
damn
feel
it,
so
dude.
bad for him.
I mean, he still had a hell of a run too, but like, imagine if he was in The Deer Hunter.
The thing is, he had an amazing run, but it feels like his run ends with All That Jazz in '79,
Yeah.
and I feel like it might have been extended longer had he gotten Deer Hunter.
Yeah. He just, for some reason, with All That Jazz, he made Jaws at that. He made a bunch of movies at that point. He made Jaws after that, and the studio didn't want him because they didn't think he was a big enough star. And Bob Fosse's like, well, that's who I want, motherfuckers, and they got him.
And by the way, one of the best performances ever.
Yes, one of the best films ever. They wanted Warren
Yeah.
Beatty to play Bob Fosse. He's
That
like,
would have been
fuck no.
awful.
Fuck
That would
Warren
have been
Beatty.
fucking terrible.
He's an overrated motherfucker because I've seen a bunch of his films and he just plays it as like this. I'm an A-lister the whole time.
He just plays it. He plays it straight. He's playing himself, basically.
He's a bad Dick Tracy. I like Dick Tracy, but he's just so distracting because he's like, I'm a fucking A-lister the whole time. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
Did you know that? Now, and this will kind of transition to one of my films. Al Pacino turned down a role to play in Dick Tracy. He turned down the role of Jimmy Conway in Goodfellas to play in Dick Tracy.
That I didn't know.
And
That's crazy.
And he regretted that because Goodfellas was the film I thought was the best film of the 90s before I chose over Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that is Martin Scorsese's best film?
I would say it's his best film. It's his style at his peak. It's perfect acting, editing is, oh my god, the music, it's just a great fucking movie. Funny as hell, entertaining, timeless. It's a timeless movie like The Godfather.
It is. It's probably like I think I'd been watching movies a long time, but it's one of those movies that I remember specifically watching and realizing that a character had an arc, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like what Henry Hill goes through, I'm like, oh shit, like he changed so much from the beginning of the movie to the end, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and he's influenced in all the wrong ways. Like when he gets pinched, nobody tells him, hey, what you did is bad. They literally celebrate him, you know?
Yeah.
And after that, it's one of those, oh shit, like this is going to end up bad, you know? It kind of becomes obvious the more you watch it, the more you rewatch it, that, oh shit, like he was just led down a bad path. Like he wasn't really a terrible person or anything.
Yep. It just so just awesome. Just so well made.
De Niro, I feel like, because everybody talks about Pesci and the late great Ray Liotta.
Yep.
But I feel like he is as good, if not better, than both of them in that movie. He's so good.
My favorite scene. I have a few favorite scenes. I mean, it's hard to have a favorite scene, but one of my favorite moments, and Scorsese even said this is his favorite De Niro moment. He was on a talk show. One of my favorite moments is after Tommy leaves Billy Batts' party because he was pissed off. Billy Batts is talking. She's like, he was a fucking. Hey Jimmy, what's right is right. And Jimmy kind of shakes him off like, nah, that's all right. And then Billy Batts like, no, and he's coming here. And I got acting like a fucking jerk. And Jimmy goes, no. Well, you insult him a little bit. You insult him. He's like, no, I didn't. I didn't insult him. And Jimmy goes, okay. What he did every time, dude.
I know exactly.
It's perfect.
What you're talking about too. It's so good.
It's so good. I love how he goes, okay, and he just smiles. I'm like, dude. I would say De Niro that moment is the best. It is so funny. It's so good. God, I love Goodfellas. So good
throughout that movie. The phone booth scene when he finds out that she's been killed, he fucking knocks it over. He's so good.
Even when he's roughing up Morty, he's like, give him a fuck. It's just, he's so good. And like, even when he's young, he's trying to play it off as a 20-year-old, but he looks 40. It's great.
And, I mean, not to segue it to mine, but like...
No, you're good.
One of my picks was Godfather 2. And to me, him and Pacino are giving maybe 2 of the 5 greatest performances of all time in that movie.
Now, this is another one where I respect it. I still think I gave it a 9. I think it's phenomenal. I just prefer the first one. Like
Oh, so do I, for the record, but I
okay.
still think it's great.
And De Niro is very good. He is just his performance is quiet. I like that he speaks Italian. I like that he committed that much. He looks like a young Vito. I think it's super cool how they did that. I what would you say is your favorite storyline of the two? Because they're kind of different. I mean, they are different, obviously.
I mean, my favorite storyline has always been like pretty much like the first half of the first movie, which is the Don gets shot. They think he's dead, and it's kind of like a power struggle to see what's gonna happen. And then Sonny gets killed, and all that happens.
Oh no, I was talking about the second one. Like which?
Oh, the second one?
Yeah, like which
Oh,
plot line?
you're talking about between
Yeah,
the rise of Don or the fall of Michael?
yeah.
I would say it's probably the fall, just because it's.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, because the rise of Vito, you're rooting for Vito. Obviously, even though he's a bad guy, like you're still sort of rooting for him because he's not like evil.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, Michael seems like he's pretty much evil. I mean, if you choose to kill your brother, like it's about as bad as it gets.
I'm not dumb. I'm smart. My dad likes saying that to me. Every
Yeah.
day. Like Fredo said, I'm not dumb. I'm smart.
No, and then one of the best scenes ever is just acting wise is when Diane Keaton tells him that it was an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives like this look on his face, like, "Oh my God, is this dude gonna kill his wife right now?" Like,
Yeah. No, Pacino's good. I mean, it's good, man. I love Marlon Brando and James Caan in the first one. I think their absence is missing. And
totally.
I don't know. Tom's treated like shit too, and Michael. I like Vito's storyline. That to me is a little interesting because the way it's shot is so cool. It's much darker and like
when he kills the other guy,
yeah.
the way it's shot, where he's walking across the roof,
Mm-hmm.
it's shot so fucking. I don't know if they put the camera on a dolly or something, but it's on the other building, I assume, and it's just tracking him as he's.
Mm-hmm.
As he's tracking the other guy, and I'm just like, oh man, this is so cool.
I mean, Coppola. I think Coppola is the king of the '70s.
Yeah, he's got to be.
Like, and that's saying a lot because you have Kubrick, who's right behind him, with
and Spielberg,
and Spielberg, and Scorsese with Taxi Driver. I mean, Coppola though had Godfather 1 and 2, The Last Conversation, which he made during The Godfather Part 2, and Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, and Spielberg had Duel, Sugarland Express,
I need to
Jaws,
see that. Yeah.
Close Encounters. I mean,
Yeah. Close
come
Encounters
on,
is
you know?
and you got Kubrick, you have Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon. I mean, I know it's not in it, but Shining eventually.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, that's basically 70s, you know?
insane lineup for the 70s. But Coppola had a lot. And The Godfather, just The Godfather 1 and 2 just feel like epic filmmaking. Like you don't see that nowadays. Where they know they're making some real hardcore shit.
No, and the fact is that he was like the 10th choice to direct that movie.
That's crazy.
There was like 8 or 9 other directors that said no to it, and then he said yes to it, which is crazy to me.
Did you know the studio, for one, I have a few fun facts about The Godfather. I read the trivia a long time ago. The studio wanted to make the movie modern day, which would have been the 70s. And Coppola said, no, that's fucking stupid. It takes place in the, 40s, 50s? Yeah. It's got to do that. And they would argue, and he got, luckily they just gave up on him. They wanted Orson Welles as the Don. Coppola wanted Marlon Brando. They didn't want Marlon Brando. The studio wanted Robert Redford to play Michael. And Coppola's like,
do you know why
no.
they wanted Robert Redford, by the way, or no?
I don't know, but because he's popular?
No. It's because in the book, Michael is like 6 feet tall with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Oh.
So Robert Redford would actually look a lot like him.
Damn, imagine that pick. I think he would have killed it, honestly.
No, I think it would have been great. I don't know that it would have been better than Pacino, but I think it would have been really good.
Well, Pacino, they didn't want him, so Pacino had to fight, like for Michael.
Yeah.
And I can see that rawness in his performance, and he's great. You got James Caan. James Caan. So they wanted De Niro to play Sonny, which would have been great.
Yeah.
There's a cool little clip of him doing an audition, but James Caan comes in and says, "Nah, that's my part," and did a fucking good job.
And I don't know if you know this about Pacino, but the studio, because they were so unsure of him, they were thinking about firing him like throughout the project. So what what Coppola did was he went way ahead and filmed the scene where he kills oh shit, I'm forgetting their
Sollozzo.
names. Yeah, Sollozzo in the Italian restaurant. They went way ahead. I guess they were going to film that way later on. They filmed that really early on and sent it to the studio and said, "There, like, stop fucking bugging us. He's going to be great." And then they shut up after that.
That's amazing. That's a great scene. That movie is just phenomenal. Like, I hate now that it gets the stigma like, oh, just because it's called the greatest film of all time, it's over. Like, it's not. If someone said that's the greatest film ever made, I'd be like, yeah, I can see it. I would say that's a totally great answer.
I think I'm one of the people that actually agrees with it, where I'm like, yeah, I think this is the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, it deserves that praise. And The Godfather Part 2, I understand. I don't agree that it's better than the first one, but it's still one of the best sequels ever made.
Yeah, like, for me, the first one is the greatest movie ever, and I think the second one is like top 10.
It's
like,
a cool epilogue,
I
think.
phenomenal.
It adds a lot of cool things that maybe we didn't need to see, but it was nice. And then you got the third one that just shit all over it.
Oh, I know.
Oh my god, I remember watching that.
Sofia Coppola is not a good actress.
I remember watching it like, man. And that's in the 90s. That's 1990, I think. Or 91 or something.
90.
Ugh. That's a bad part of the 90s, the resurgence. Well, I kind of have a segue back into a film I know you would agree. One of the best films of the 90s, Shawshank Redemption.
No, I thought we were talking about good ones.
Okay. Wait, do you not like that one?
No, I mean, Shawshank's great. Yeah.
I was going to say. Like, that's...
I don't think... But here's the thing. I'm not as big on it as other people. I will say that.
Hey, totally fair. Mm-hmm. Totally fair. What is your rating of it? Rating?
I think I give it a 9.
Okay. That's still good. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's a great film. It's a great film. But the constant argument I get with people is when I say that it's the third best movie of 94.
Oh, because you got Pulp Fiction and The Last Seduction, which is the best of the 94.
No, not The Last Seduction.
Which you need
Forrest
to see.
Gump.
It's very good.
Forrest Gump, okay? Forrest Gump.
Okay. But, like...
I know you're going to disagree with that one.
Would you agree that Shawshank is like a film you could recommend to anybody and they would enjoy it? Like, it's one of those movies.
100%. And it is one of the greatest films ever.
Just entertaining.
It's just that 94 is just stacked. That year was amazing.
Like, that script, I read it in script class, Shawshank, and it's like a book. It's very novelesque. But it's super cool. It's just very... The script is tight. The acting's great. It's entertaining. There's no... what I like to say is there's no fat. They trimmed all the fat. It's all meat. There's no bad scenes. It's just a feel good at like the end. And Robert... oh my gosh. Morgan Freeman's voice. His voiceover is awesome. It's iconic. Just one of those like good ass movies that should have won Best Picture.
I mean, over Forrest Gump?
Yes.
Are we sure about that?
I think I'm sure about that.
Over The Lion King?
Oh, the original Lion King.
Yeah, the original came out that year too.
Was it nominated for Best Picture?
Actually, I don't know. I know it won a bunch of Oscars though. I know it did that.
Well, here's the thing, David. The original is not as good as the new live action remake, though.
Oh God.
I'm just kidding. Oh my gosh. No way. What else?
Well, I'm curious. What does the rest of your list look like?
All right. Let me look real quick. All right, so I have the other two we haven't talked about is Unforgiven and Eyes Wide Shut.
Okay.
I
Those
know.
are really interesting picks, actually. I didn't think you'd pick those.
Well, Unforgiven is my favorite Western. I think it's the best Western. It won Best Picture in the 90s. I think 93.
I think it came out in 92, so if it did win, it won 93, right?
Yeah, yeah. That is just a perfect movie. Just perfect. I love the script. I love how it's a deconstruction of Westerns. I like how there's no hero. I love the ending. Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, Clint Eastwood, Richard Harris, just a stacked cast. What do you think about it?
It's one of the best films ever.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue it's maybe... I think it's maybe his Clint Eastwood's second best film.
Okay.
Behind The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Okay, that's fair.
But again, I think it's phenomenal. I do think that's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Hell yeah. And it's one of the best Picture winners.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Didn't win for script. I don't know why. But, like, the script is so awesome. Again, scripts, man. And the other film is Kubrick's last ever film, Eyes Wide Shut, which I would argue is one of his best films. And he, I think, has one of his best scenes ever in that movie.
Which scene are you talking about specifically?
When Tom Cruise walks into that big-ass room with everyone wearing the mask and they're doing that ritual song thing, and the song is super creepy. Like, and the camera swirls, and it's just weird, and like we don't know what's going to happen. It's just awesome.
That scene is haunting. Yeah.
Haunting that's a perfect word, man. Perfect word.
Yeah, and I've also noticed in that one that there's a lot of silence in that one too. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that? There isn't there's definitely music in there, but he chooses very specific scenes to for there to be like total silence in.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, he did work on AI, right?
He did a lot of pre-production, but then died, and Spielberg took over, and everyone bitches about AI for the spoiler ending with the blue fairy, but all that was Kubrick. Kubrick wrote, like, I think he said Kubrick wrote the first and third acts of that script, and Spielberg did the middle part. So he did all the dark shit, like that robot fucking games thing where they kill robots and shit. Like, that was all Spielberg, all the dark stuff.
And by the way, all that is great.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that movie's great.
I don't know about you. I think AI is one of... I fucking love that movie.
It's my second favorite Spielberg film.
It's a fucking great movie. The concepts in it are insane.
Yes.
I don't know about you. I'm not really the type to get emotional watching films, but that one actually hits me in the feels pretty hard every time I watch it.
You are spot on, man. When I watched it for the first time, I was so moved emotionally. I was tearing up. I was just like crushed for the characters. It was just awesome. Like,
yeah,
Jude Law's character has no emotion, but I cared about him. He had like one objective, but I still cared for his character. It's just so good.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, I don't know how it was for you. It was one of those, like, I'm watching this scene specifically about, his mom, and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
I call my mom.
Literally, or like the ending where he's like in the simulation. It's just sad. And dude, also Teddy, the fucking teddy bear. I was afraid he was gonna lose that bear. If he would have lost that bear, I would have cried my eyes out.
Yeah.
Over a teddy bear.
I was afraid of that too.
That teddy bear is awesome, and I'm glad he was with him the whole movie too.
Yeah.
And stayed with him. Just great. That was 2001 when it came out.
Yeah, but what year? When did Kubrick die? Like 99?
99, right after Eyes Wide Shut, actually.
Okay.
That's sad. He didn't make a
film.
He
must have been like the early stages.
His last film before that was 87's Full Metal Jacket.
Which is insane, by the way, that he went that long without making a film.
I know.
I gotta assume that's gotta be because of his obsessive nature, where he picks a project, he gets so into it that it takes like years off of his life.
He literally, like his adaptations, like he'd pick books. I think all of his films are based on books, besides probably maybe his early work. Well, Spartacus. Spartacus is interesting. I watched that. It's very good, by the way. Kubrick.
I've seen Spartacus. That's a great movie.
Kubrick was brought on because Kirk Douglas needed a director for that film because he started. It was his project, and it was basically a studio project for Kubrick. But it's still fucking phenomenal.
What is your What is your favorite Kubrick film? Is it
Barry Lyndon?
Okay.
Just a great 3-hour epic, funny, beautiful, hilarious, sad, good movie.
That's the thing. There are films that are way too fucking long and they drag, but that one actually kind of flies by
for 3 hours.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Kubrick film?
Oh man, it's probably The Shining.
Oh, that's my third favorite.
Because I go back and forth between The Shining and 2001. I think the reason I picked The Shining slightly over it is because, bless you.
Thank you.
Is because for me, it's the third act specifically of 2001 where I'm like, God, this is fucking amazing. Everything with Hal.
Hal is awesome.
It's one of the great, like, to me, top 5 movie villain of all time, Hal.
2001's my second favorite. I mean, it's very close, but like the epicness of 2001 for me is insane. Kubrick has big old balls.
The scope and the scale of that movie is like unprecedented.
And it's impressive because the spaceships, I never realized this. So how they did it, they're toy models. So when they look like they're moving away from the camera, it's the camera that's actually moving away from
away from them. Yeah, I've seen. Yeah,
I'm like, that's so, like, it sounds so simple, but it's like, god damn, it looks so real. Like that spinning one, the one with like the one at the beginning. Like, how the fuck do they do that? It's insane. It's so good.
It looks so real, especially if you've ever seen pictures of like space. You know, like not just space, but like satellites and you know everything out there. The movements that he got right for, you know, it's kind of insane, especially because in 68 when the movie came out, we didn't have any pictures of any shit out there. I mean, we did have some pictures of like the moon, but we didn't have anything of like what it would be like if there was shit moving out there. It was just him doing research and guessing from, you know, what other people would tell him what it would look like, and guess what? He was right. Like, it's insane.
It is insane. It's just flexing, epic. Probably the most...
The score.
I mean, that might be the best film ever made.
Might be. I mean, that might be the greatest sci-fi film ever.
Oh, it definitely is. I loved this fun fact. So he had a different score before, and like right before he was about to like finish it, he didn't like it, so he redid the score to what we have in the film with like the classical songs and like the opera singing at like the choir. Oh, so awesome.
And honestly, I think it was the right choice.
I agree.
It makes it feel more grand, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It makes it feel more epic, that opera tone to it.
It's so good.
I don't know what it is. It's incredible. I'm in need of a rewatch for that one. I haven't rewatched it in like a couple years, but that is one of the best films ever.
Especially if you see it on the big screen, if you ever get a chance to.
Yeah, you told me you saw it in theaters, right?
No, I did not see that in theaters. I saw Jaws in theaters.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, I'm thinking of Bryce. Bryce told me he saw it for
he's lucky.
Like the 50th anniversary. Yeah.
What's the rest of your list look like?
Okay, so I was at Chinatown, Godfather 1 and 2, The Exorcist. I think we talked about it a little bit, but I said One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
We did, yep.
And your favorite film of the decade, Star Wars. Now, Star Wars, I specifically put, because here's the thing, you know that I actually am a fan of Star Wars.
I know.
But the first one, I think it's great. The reason I put put the first one though is because Jaws changed everything, and I feel like Star Wars sort of took what Jaws did and ran with it in
Yeah.
terms of the way it, you know, going to the movies became an event after Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Star Wars is as influential as almost any of the films we've talked about because of, I mean, and you could argue it's for the negative, if anything, now. But
Yeah.
because everything has become so saturated and everything's just about a profit and there's really no real stories being told anymore. And what sucks is that I do think Star Wars was legit. Like, that is a legit story and everything. It's just that it sort of changed movies and the way, you know, the types of movies that get made now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No.
Smaller budget movies just aren't getting wide releases like that, you know?
I mean, and I agree. You're right. I don't like Star Wars, but I respect the first one. It's very influential. It's very ballsy to do something like that, and it's good. I like the first one.
And I've heard, because Alien comes out 2 years after this, and apparently it was already doing, you know, pre-production and stuff for it. I'm sorry, what's his name?
Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott, thank you. And once he saw Star Wars, he never had the idea of what if space looked like dirty. Because whenever you think of space in the 70s, you think of space and like you think of everything in the future being nice and clean and everything looking perfect. When you watch Star Wars, I don't know how many times you've seen it, but like everything's kind of junky. Everything looks like a piece of shit, and you know it's made him change his look for Alien.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he purposely made ships and everything look a little more beat up, like they've been through shit. Just because after he watched Star Wars, he realized that he didn't even realize that he could even do that. You know, changed his view of how he could make the movie.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
and that's what he didn't pick. But Alien is also another great one from the 70s.
Yes, it is. I like Alien.
Horror movie, by the way. I know some people call it a sci-fi. That's the first one is a horror movie.
Yeah, the second one is nuts. No, definitely. You picked a lot of good movies that definitely represent why the 70s is definitely the best decade of cinema by far.
Yeah, and it's like I said, there are plenty of other ones that we could have gone with. I didn't even name like The French Connection and other stuff like that. I mean, there are many good ones.
So influential. The influential decade for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I would argue not even just for movies, but for music. If you think about the best music, like it all came out in the 70s and it all inspired everything that came after it, pretty much. It's like that's, I mean, can you imagine how awesome it would have been to just grow up in that decade?
My dad. You have to do that. And they do have the best music. Led Zeppelin had their fucking insane run in the 70s.
Yeah, Led Zeppelin, Fleetwood Mac. I mean, there were so many, bands
Pink
and
Floyd.
solo artists.
Goddamn.
Yeah.
Bee Gees.
Exactly. Oh, the Bee Gees.
Oh, their 70s run is just incredible work.
Yeah, absolutely.
70s definitely is the best. Just would have been cool to go to a little time machine and check it out. Go to like a Led Zeppelin concert.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen stuff. I don't know if you have. I've seen like little, like, oh hey, you know, what movies came out this weekend in like 1976, and it's like 4 of the greatest films of all time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there'll be random shit like that where I'm just like, damn, do people probably don't even realize the golden age that they're in at that time.
Well, imagine how we felt when we watched The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
Or like Parasite. Or just something like, you're going to know it's going to be a classic.
And you know what it is? And I almost feel like there's more of a, because there's been a decade, there have been other generations ahead of us that didn't realize it. I think we're going to be more aware of it when it happens. That's why when we saw Parasite, I kind of knew. I was like, oh no, this is like people are gonna talk about this movie for a long time.
It's an all timer.
You know? Yeah, even though the ending sucks, but we don't have to get into that.
I mean, I do agree. The ending is like,
You cut out the last 10 minutes, and it would have been perfect.
like the hallucination dream thing. I'm like, that wasn't necessary.
Yeah, it's all that stuff. But we're trying to be positive here, so
Yeah.
So did you finish everything on your list, or did you have any more?
That was it.
Yeah, I mean, again, 70s, 90s. It was just
A different kind of different world back then.
yeah. And one thing I noticed too about the 70s is that horror movies in that decade are really about you know it's about almost trying to get away from one specific thing that's coming after you. Maybe The Exorcist is the exception, but you know, Black Christmas, it's really the first slasher movie.
Mm-hmm.
Chainsaw Massacre, those kids are just trying to get away from that fucking family and from Leatherface. Yeah.
Yeah.
Halloween, Jamie Lee Curtis is trying to get away from Michael Myers. Alien, Ripley's trying to get away from the fucking xenomorph. You know what I mean? It seems like every decade will have like a certain theme.
Yeah.
And that's the one I've noticed, at least from the 70s.
Well, the 90s has like the crime horror. You got like, Silence of the Lambs, Seven.
Well, it seems like for me, when I look back at the 70s, if you notice all of the 70s, most of the 70s, the movies end with a not happy ending, with a really fucked up ending. Almost every single one of them.
Yeah.
And then that's when I do think Star Wars kind of changed that narrative. Star Wars and Jaws, actually, they kind of end on a positive note.
Yeah, they do. They do.
That it seems like the 80s are way more upbeat about the way movies end. And then the 90s comes around and it flips back over again. And I feel like that probably starts with something like, Seven, which is one of the most fucked up movies that's ever existed.
It's a fucking great movie.
A phenomenal movie, and it's so fucked up.
I have one problem with it. I still give it a 5 out of 5. My only problem with Seven is the pacing. It's very
you're right.
slow.
The pacing is a little all over the place.
Like the movie's very intense and like dark, but it's slow. I mean, like kind of in a bad way. Like it just takes its time a little too much.
John Doe, though, one of the best villains ever.
I hate what's his name, Kevin Spacey in real life. So like watching him in that movie, I hate him even more because he's so good.
It's actually kind of insane. Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Is I'm like, this guy was one of my favorite actors for so long because he's such an amazing actor, and it sucks. I was just like, what a piece of shit. Like, he really just
he fell off
ruined everything for everybody.
And like, fun fact, you know why his head is shaved in the end?
No.
He made a bet with David Fincher that if he shaved his head, David Fincher would have to shave it too, so they would both be shaved heads for the rest of the film. He said, sure. So they shaved their heads.
Did. That's how he convinced it?
That's why he has a shaved head. I swear to God, it's in the trivia on IMDb.
Oh my God.
Which makes him look even creepier with a shaved head.
It does. He looks skinheadish,
Yeah. That's a fucked up ending. I'm glad you probably knew this, but the studio wanted to change it, obviously, because it's like fucked up. Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, and David Fincher said if they changed it, they would leave. They would not finish the movie.
Not just that, they actually did make them change it a little bit, because originally what they were gonna do was they were gonna fade to black after he kills John Doe, Brad Pitt. So Brad Pitt shoots him, right?
Yeah.
And they were immediately gonna fade to black.
Really?
And the studio's like, dude, you're gonna give people a heart attack. Like, how are you gonna end it there? And but they wanted to go extreme and try to like change the ending altogether. And it's like you said, they threatened to leave, and instead they met in the middle, and they said, we'll have one scene where they take Brad Pitt away and take care of him or whatever, and then that's when you get the quote. What's the quote again? It's
I'll see you around.
Not even that. It's the world's worth fighting for or something, right?
Something like
Isn't that
that.
the
Yeah.
quote from Morgan Freeman? And it's a
Yes.
great quote. I like that ending, but I actually do agree with them. It would have been kind of badass if they had ended it by rolling credits after he shoots John Doe. That
Dude,
would have
that'd
been
be
insane.
insane. Oh, David
Yeah, I
Fincher in the
guess
'90s.
they did test screenings for it, and people lost their shit. They were like, "What the fuck? You guys ended it there?"
David Fincher in the '90s also had a hell of a run.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm of the opinion that he's never really missed. Even his weaker movies are still like okay.
Yep.
Like I don't. I'm a big Mank guy, but even Mank is like a pretty well-made film. You know, it's not bad.
I don't understand the hate for Mank. I'm gonna defend it here for a second. I watched Mank when it came out on Netflix. And I immediately loved it. I'm like, this is awesome. The script is so good. When Gary Oldman, who gets shit nowadays for some reason, when Gary Oldman is drunk, giving that awesome monologue at that dinner table for like 10 minutes, cinema. I'm like, this is awesome. How do people not like this? It's because he's just describing the plot of Citizen Kane to the guy they influenced off of in a bad way, like basically telling him off. It's awesome.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
good.
He's really good, and I mean, he's also another guy that I think has always been a, you know, one of the
Hmm.
best actors of his generation. You know,
He's very
so
good in
I
Mank.
he could do no wrong. I am really excited to see what. I mean, has Fincher said what his next project is?
His next project is with Michael Fassbender, and it's about a serial killer.
Oh, that's right. Oh, you're combining like one of my favorite directors with maybe my favorite actor. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Fincher never misses. He really. I haven't seen Benjamin
No, he
Button.
never does.
Is Benjamin Button good?
Here's the thing. I really like it. A lot of people don't. I'd be curious to see what you think about
It's
it.
just 2.5 hours long.
No, it's almost 3 hours long.
I don't have any time. I still gotta see that and Panic Room and Alien 3. Haven't seen Alien 3 yet.
Panic Room is pretty good. Uh, I would say that Benjamin Button has a really slow pacing, though. That's the one thing.
What do you think of The Game?
Oh, I love the game.
It's
The
phenomenal.
game is really fucking good. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. I love that. Like Michael Douglas is one of my favorite actors. I think he's great.
He
He
works perfect for that world, too.
Yes,
He's like the perfect actor for it.
I love the clown. People were upset about the ending being like too contrived. I'm like, well, I think that's the point, and I like how it literally ends
Yeah.
like that. It's so fucked
No,
up though.
I think the ending is really good. I think the whole movie is really good.
It's just fucked
I,
up.
you know, I mean, you've seen Zodiac, right? You love Zodiac too, I assume.
Well, here's the thing. I like Zodiac a lot. I think it's good. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I don't
Hmm.
see like people say it's like the greatest film ever made. I don't see that. I think it's really really good. It's good.
Hmm.
David Fincher again never misses. It's very good, but it's just kind of long and I don't know. I really love that scene with Roger Rabbit's voice actor with Jake Gyllenhaal when he goes in that basement.
Oh, yeah.
Very effective.
That is one of the scariest scenes of all time. I think
And is it
that scene is so intense.
John Lynch Carroll as that one as the one of the suspects or John Carroll Lynch? I forget.
John Carroll Lynch
John Carroll Lynch. He's
is
great.
is the guy who, because I mean, obviously Fincher is another, sorry, he's another Kubrick type that gets obsessed with his projects.
Hmm.
So apparently, when he signed up to do the movie, he investigated everything himself. Like he looked over all the evidence, and he thinks that it was John Carroll Lynch's character, who was obviously a real guy. He thinks that he was the one who was the Zodiac.
But they didn't have enough evidence on him.
No, they didn't. Um, but I mean, everything he puts in the movie is part of the evidence, and if that is true, that the first guy that ever got shot by him identified him, I'm like, well, I feel like that's pretty fucking obvious that that's the guy, isn't it? You know?
I think my issue, and I don't know if this is the movie's fault, but like the whole point of the movie is they don't know who it is. They never figure it out, and it's upsetting. And you really want to know who it is, so you have that satisfying resolution, but you don't get one. So it kind of leaves like a sour taste in your mouth. Like I knew the whole movie that they don't know who it is, so I was trying to like put that aside because like that's not the point of this movie. It's not. but I just still felt like probably how the characters felt, like they want more, but they don't have anything more.
That's the thing, though, is that I actually think it's better because of it. I think I can actually rewatch it more and more
Mm-hmm.
because there isn't a definitive, hey, this guy is the one that did it.
Right. No, that
You
makes
know,
sense.
I think that's why I find it. I mean, I literally rewatch it like twice a year, and I don't
Nice.
rewatch. I'm not a guy who likes rewatching movies. Like I like to move on and see what else is new or knock out more movies from my watch list.
Yeah.
But that's one that I revisit all the time, and I love it. And Fincher just whenever he has to do any true crime related stories, he knocks that shit out of the park,
Yeah.
like Mindhunter. And like, have you ever seen the Black Dahlia movie?
The Black Dahlia movie?
It's with Scarlett Johansson plays Black Dahlia.
I haven't seen it, no.
Brian De Palma directed it.
I haven't, I need to dive into Brian De Palma. I've only seen Scarface, The Untouchables. What else? I haven't seen a lot of his stuff.
You seen Carlito's Way?
I saw Carrie.
Carrie.
Never,
Okay.
I didn't see Carlito's Way
Um.
or Blowout.
Oh, Blowout is phenomenal. I think you'd love Blowout.
I gotta watch his shit because I know he's like one of those. Also in the '70s, like Carrie.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, though, is that Black Dahlia comes out in 2006, and apparently the top choice for that was Fincher, but Fincher was working on Zodiac, and he was having so much trouble with the production in Zodiac, he didn't have a chance to do Black Dahlia. Otherwise, that would have been him, and I think he would have crushed that too.
Oh wow.
I mean, that's a pretty fucking famous murder case, So I would have really been curious to see what he had done with it.
I'll add that to my watch list.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any? You gonna watch any new films recently? Like, what's on your current watch list?
So that's the thing. I haven't been to the theater in a few weeks, and it's killing me. I don't know about you. If I go for more than 2 weeks without going to the theater, it bugs the shit out of me. It's an itch I need to scratch.
Yeah.
And I really want to see Pearl.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to see Barbarian.
I want to see both of those. So good shit.
Yeah, you haven't seen either of them?
No.
Okay. What was the last thing you saw in theaters?
Dude, what was the last movie we saw in theaters? We were supposed to see Nope like 2 different fucking times, but didn't get a chance to. Let me look at my letterbox. That'll tell me.
Have you seen Nope, or you still haven't seen it?
So I haven't seen Nope. I really want to. I know I'm fucking slacking on that. Let me see. Theaters. Man, it's been a while. Oh, it's been a while. Sorry, hold on a second. Yeah, it's been a while. Still, I'm in April. Wow. Oh, The Batman.
The Batman?
Yeah, it's been a
When
while.
was the last time you went to the theater?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Oh, shit.
I know, I've been busy, man. So busy I've been.
I didn't realize it had been that long for you.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to watch tonight. So I'm in the mood to watch Hannibal, Ridley Scott's Hannibal 2001, because I tried watching that a few years ago in October with Emily. We were about 10 minutes in. She looked over at me. She was like, hey, can we just watch Silence of the Lambs? I said, yeah, let's watch that instead. So we shut that shit off and just watched Silence of the Lambs. So, I didn't finish it, and I want to give it a fair chance, even though I turned it off within 10 minutes before. So I'm going to see what that's like.
I'm curious to see what you think about it. I'm not a big fan of that one personally.
Well, what gets me is it's based off the novel. It's Ridley Scott. David Mamet, who is a very good screenwriter, did the script. Anthony Hopkins is back. I know Jodie Foster's not. It's Julianne Moore, which I like her. So,
yeah.
And Hans Zimmer does the score. So, there's some good shit behind it. So,
There are definitely good names attached to it. I'm curious to see what you think about it. I actually do think, even though we were shit talking them earlier, Red Dragon's actually pretty solid. It's not great. I think it's a 7 out of 10 though.
Well, I'll watch that later if I have time. I'm not going to watch the one with the prequel where he's a kid and it's not even Anthony Hopkins because I don't.
No. That's called Hannibal Rising. That one's bad. You don't need to see that one.
Right. But I'll definitely check out
yeah,
Red Dragon for you.
Yeah, Red Dragon again. I think it's pretty good. I'm not a big Edward Norton guy either, but
Yeah,
he's whatever in it. It's just I feel like there's a lot of violence in that movie that I think is pretty visceral. It's actually really good. Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it.
Oh, he is.
And I think Ray Fiennes is really good in it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to say before we end this episode?
All I want to say is we apologize that we were gone for so long.
Yeah.
And we're gonna
do some October stuff.
Try to stay more up to date. Yeah, we're gonna try to do more stuff.
We will, and we'll discuss that and go from there.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you. Oh yeah, I forgot. This is the film podcast that nobody listens to. Later.
Yeah, we're just talking to ourselves. Later.
Later.